It is time for the rematch and the finale of the Triple Crown. Two of the best 3-year-olds, scratch that, the three best 3-year-olds, all coming together to run in the finale of the Triple Crown and the start of the real 3-year-old season. While this Jewel of the Triple Crown has the smallest field of horses, it is still a very top-heavy field with a lot of talented horses and is going to set the tone for who is going to be the division leader for the second half of the season. So without further ado, let's get into this thrilling finale. With first, the winner of the Peter Pan Stakes, the local New York Belmont Stakes Prep, Hill Road. A horse with a unique history. He was born in America, but he started his career racing in Ireland, where he would win his first race, but then he would come to America to run in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile in his very first start on dirt, which should have been a recipe for failure, but he was actually able to pick up the pieces and get third place behind Citizen Bull. After this, he was then third again in a late closing performance for the Tampa Bay Derby. Third time is the charm, as he flew late to win the Peter Pan Stakes, coming from way off the pace. That is to be expected to be how he's going to try and do the Belmont Stakes, and if he's going to win, that's how he's going to do it, running down everybody. The problem is, the three best 3-year-olds in the country are all running in this race, and they are all come from behind horses. They may not be closing from as deeply as Hill Road, but they are going to be coming just as fast, if not faster, akin to last year with Honor Marie, being the deepest closer in the field, but simply outclassed. He's very talented, and I'm really excited to see what he does in the future, but I think he's a little too outclassed here. He needs to run a bit better than he has currently, and he needs everybody else to run a bit less good. Number 2, Sovereignty. Easily the most controversial racehorse in this field. Winner of the Kentucky Derby in impressive style, and then he skipped the Preakness, adding fuel to the debate about rescheduling the Triple Crown. If I insert my incredibly biased opinion, I personally will be rooting against him for purely historical reasons. I don't want a horse who skipped the Preakness Stakes to then win the Belmont Stakes. I think that would cause a lot of very tired arguing, and I just don't want to deal with it. I want him to lose, but not badly. I want him to run well, and I also really want to see him continue to race well for the rest of the year. Just please, don't win this race. I just don't want it. It's just too much of a headache. But if I remove all of my personal opinion on just him running at all, and instead focus on his objective chances, he's very scary. He's been arrested 5 weeks, which seems to be a magical number. He's been training at Saratoga longer than most of the other horses in this field have. And also, there's no reason to suggest that he's going to bounce. He came into the Kentucky Derby off of a solid defeat in the Florida Derby, and then he only got stronger now that he had more distance to go with. Now with less of a field to deal with, he'll be closer to the pace and he'll have less work to do. He's already defeated the most difficult and intimidating horses in this field at least once. You can argue about the circumstances of how they lost, but at the end of the day, he has beaten 2 of the greatest 3-year-olds in this country and is now better rested than one of them. There aren't many holes in his armor. And to add on to things, there are strong chances that it will rain on Belmont Stakes Day and the days leading up to it. It's very likely that Saratoga is going to get wet. Maybe not as wet as the Derby, but wet. And clearly, that's no problem at all. If he can win the first Saturday in May, completely covered head to toe with mud, then he can do this. Heck, it might even heighten his chances. Number 3, Rodriguez, the mystery horse, and the smart guy money. His last performance was by far his best in the Wood Memorial, and it got a lot of people excited to see what he would do in the Kentucky Derby. But then he got a foot bruise. So then it was time to go to the Preakness, where people thought that he was going to be one of the most dangerous horses in the field. But then another small injury took him out again. So third time should be the charm, right? Well, for his team, that's the hope anyway. Rodriguez is the speed. An aggressive frontrunner, and as shown in the Wood Memorial, when given an uncontested lead, he can be very dangerous. With his stablemate Citizen Bull instead going to the Woody Stevens Stakes, he'll be completely out of any other Baffert horse's shadow, and given his chance to shine once again, just like in the Wood Memorial. The big thing he'll have to worry about, though, will be another front-running horse named Crudo, as that will be the easiest way for him to get a contested lead, and that is something Rodriguez has yet to fully prove that he can handle. Of course, any frontrunner can handle things going entirely their own way. The real character comes in when a horse is constantly pressing them and is just as fast as they are, and that's what Crudo could potentially be. But on Rodriguez's side will be experience. He's ran in twice as many races as Crudo, and, unlike Crudo, is actually a graded stakes winner. So there's also the possibility that he could simply outmuscle Crudo, and use his class to take the race and do things his own way. That is, if he could then hold off the onslaught of the 3 best horses in the world. Now, I know I've been saying that a lot, enough that you guys can start taking shots whenever I say it, but it really is important when you're talking about your bets, and thinking of a horse that can truly stand a chance. Rodriguez definitely does have a shot, let's just hope he stays healthy. Number 4, Uncaged. Easily the biggest long shot in this field, and the only horse in this race that has never won a single stakes race in their career. Most would say this horse has no chance. And they're mostly right. Easily beaten in his last start in the Peter Pan Stakes against Hill Road, a horse who's already considered outclassed in this Belmont Stakes field. Again, the least accomplished horse in this field. He's also never won over 2 turns. Both of his victories were 1-turn sprint races, and now he has to go 1.25 miles. But he does have one thing potentially on his side. The mud. This horse loves it. His 2 victories were both over muddy surfaces. It's very likely that Saratoga will be muddy on Belmont Day. If it does come up in those conditions, this horse is a mudda. That could be enough of a reason to put him in as your long shot pick, as your mud choice. After all, Jim Dandy, the most famous horse to pull off an upset at Saratoga, the track known as the Graveyard of Champions, loved the mud, and that was his ace to defeat Gallant Fox 95 years ago. Maybe history will repeat itself, but there still is so much that Uncaged would have to prove first. You'll just have to see, bet at your own risk. Number 5, Crudo. Easily higher bet than the 2 super long shots, Uncaged and Heart of Honor, but still not as well trusted as the higher touted top 4. Crudo is very talented, but inexperienced. After a poor start in his first race at Gulfstream Park, and using up his energy on the backstretch, leading to a 4th place finish, his next 2 races have painted a different picture, going right to the early lead, and then easily running away by open lengths in a gate-to-wire fashion. The Belmont Stakes is a huge jump in class for this horse, as his biggest victory was the listed Sir Barton Stakes at Pimlico, but even that race was already a major character builder for him, as it was his first race over 2 turns and his stakes debut. So already he's made 1 leap successful. Can he jump 3 times as big? We'll find out. As long as he breaks good, he's going to go to the lead with the very aggressive Rodriguez. Now, Rodriguez will be definitely as much of a liability to him as Crudo will be to Rodriguez. Both work best with uncontested early leads. Rodriguez has proven it successfully at the graded stakes level, meanwhile Crudo has won by significantly higher margins. Now, I'm not necessarily expecting a pace meltdown from just 2 decently fast horses, but I do expect them to get into each other's way. Todd Pletcher is no stranger to success in the Belmont Stakes, or even the Travers Stakes, which is the more adjacent equivalent in this case. So, him bringing Crudo in, he must believe this horse has a shot, but he definitely will have a lot to do. As a long shot, he is not without value and is probably smarter money than the bigger long shots of Uncaged or Heart of Honor would be. If you want more bang for your buck compared to Rodriguez, check out Crudo. Number 6, Baeza, a horse who is going to get a lot of play. Most people are aware that when he ran in the Kentucky Derby, he had a very rough trip, but still was able to make things work and fly super late. And many do believe that under more ideal circumstances, Baeza maybe could have even won the Kentucky Derby. He was only a few strides away from passing Journalism, a horse that he had previously lost to in the Santa Anita Derby. Sovereignty, though, that's going to be a different debate. What is universally agreed upon is that this horse ran a heck of a race for just his fourth start in his career, especially with how inexperienced he was in almost every other facet, running in small fields and never having to deal with the mud. Now he's crossed both of those off ebulliently. Like Sovereignty, he'll be well rested, and compared to every other horse in this field, he seems to be improving at an alarming rate if his Kentucky Derby performance is to be believed to not be a fluke. However, one thing that people do also bring up is that in the Santa Anita Derby, when he had a perfect scenario to defeat journalism, who was boxed and beaten up on the inside, he still lost. The question will be, which Baeza are we going to see? As in the Santa Anita Derby, he did run rather greenly. Has the Kentucky Derby really given him the chance to go from a boy to a man? One thing's for sure, it's going to be a lot harder for him to get into trouble as compared to the Kentucky Derby. He's now used to the mud, and clearly it doesn't seem to bother him too much. I think the most important deciding factor is that Baeza, Sovereignty, and journalism all know how to fly. Who will save their energy the best when it's most important in that final quarter? Who will be coming the strongest late as they come down to the wire? Whoever does that and positions themselves perfectly should get it. Number 7, journalism. Now, as I bring up the biased, heavy opinionation again, I want journalism very badly to beat Sovereignty and put the boot on the other foot. Is that possible? Well, yes. Is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. Like the Triple Crown itself, this will be inherently unfair. Journalism is the only horse in the race who has competed in the previous 2 jewels. He will be going against better rested horses, including 2 of his toughest opponents, one being the only horse to have beaten him this year, and the other horse who came within a neck of defeating him in the same race after a rough trip. Both of those horses haven't run since then. Meanwhile, journalism ran in another race 2 weeks later and got beat up in the stretch and had to use everything he could to run down a runaway leader. And considering the quality of the Preakness field, mainly revolving around talented but inexperienced horses, that for the most part had not succeeded in running in the Kentucky Derby, so instead had to wait 2 weeks to run in the Preakness, the fact that he barely won that race, while still very credible, also indicates that if a horse with the kind of quality as Baeza or Sovereignty ran, and they had a clean trip, journalism would have ran a hard-fought second place. He knows how to run down horses on the outside, but the Kentucky Derby showed that when he's on the inside, and a horse is on his outside, he is very passable, and while he can run well on a wet surface, there are horses of equal talent that can run on it better. Objectively, journalism is not a great bet. You are not going to get a lot of money off of him, and he is going to be going into this race with a lot of disadvantages. This is going to be the toughest race of his whole career, and he only has 3 weeks rest. He is facing the arduous challenge of the Triple Crown in all its unfair glory, which is why, in my opinion, it would be amazing if he was able to win, proving that if you have a horse who is truly great enough, they can overcome that unfair chance and do really well in the Triple Crown, which is part of the point of the Triple Crown. Not every great horse needs to race in the Triple Crown, but it's still possible, and if you prepare and campaign a horse properly, and he has the speed and character, then he can last the 3 jewels of the Triple Crown and show well in all 3. And obviously, I get that the Belmont Stakes isn't being run at its current distance right now due to the unforeseen circumstances of doing the reconstruction, and I understand that journalism does not have a chance to win the Triple Crown, obviously. But he's the only horse this year who has ran in all 3 jewels, and the big controversy this year is that arguably the best horse in this year's 3-year-old crop, this year's Kentucky Derby winner, skipped the Preakness Stakes. And personally, I'm all for trainers making whatever decision they feel is right, but it also means that I would still be happy if certain outcomes occurred. And I am hoping, with all my might, that journalism somehow has one more race in him and is able to improve and take down his 2 toughest opponents. It'd be a heck of a story and great for racing. But whether that's possible, well, that's the point. It's supposed to be hard. And lastly, Heart of Honor. The British horse, who came to run in the Preakness Stakes. Most thought didn't have much of a chance, and well, he didn't really have one, as he finished 5th, just under halfway through the field. He did okay, far from the best, and now he's going to the Belmont Stakes. I do wish him the best. He's a very cute horse, and I do love his whiskers. However, when it comes to if he has a realistic chance, no, not really. I mean, do I even have to say it? He's facing against really stiff competition. If he was going to have his chance to shine, it was in the Preakness Stakes, where the race was very top-heavy, being determined by either journalism or Sandman, and the other horses in the field were all talented, but inexperienced, and still had a lot to prove. If he was going to show his mettle, he would have been able to take care of them. And now the Belmont Stakes is going to be even harder. Paints a pretty bleak picture. And that concludes the Belmont Stakes analysis. So, how am I going to do this? It's pretty hard to think of something creative, but alright, I think I got something. For sentimentality, out of the 3 big guys, I'm going to go with journalism. It worked for me in the Preakness. Hopefully it works again in the Belmont Stakes. But I know it won't be easy. Now for my long shot, which I think is a little more interesting, but I mean there's only 8 horses in this field, so can't get too creative here, I'm gonna go with Crudo. I got to see him run on Preakness Day, and he was probably the most impressive winner on the card. Yes, he's absolutely inexperienced, and is going to have to deal with a huge jump in class, but he is a front runner. He has the opportunity to dictate the pace, as long as he can hold off Rodriguez, which is easier said than done, but you aren't going to get nearly as good of a price on Rodriguez compared to Crudo. So that's my long shot pick. Journalism, my main pick. My long shot pick, Crudo. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Comment down who you think's gonna win this year's Belmont Stakes, and also just other general horse racing opinions. I clearly let myself ramble a bit on that. So, now it's your turn. What do you think of this Triple Crown series? Do you think it was good? Do you think it was bad? Are you excited to see where these horses go next? See you guys next time.